This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Our Al Jazeera correspondent in Islamabad reported that 20 Taliban fighters were killed by the Pakistani army in the lower Deer area, which neighbors the Swat Valley region. This raises the number of casualties among the Taliban fighters to 64.
A spokesman for the movement to implement Sharia in the Pakistani Swat Valley said that the movement will not return to negotiations with the government if the military operations in the region are not halted.
Our correspondent Ahmadinejad has more details.
The Pakistani army has returned to the streets of Mangora, the capital of the Swat Valley. They are patrolling the area, and soldiers' fingers are on the trigger in anticipation of what may come. The residents are concerned, anxious, and afraid that fighting will resume between the armed fighters and the army amidst a suspension of the efforts aimed at reaching a Swat agreement. The fighters accuse the government of violating the agreement when it carried out an offensive against them. The army denies this.
It was in the clauses of the deal that
it was in the clauses in that deal that after being given a Sharia court system, the fighters would lay down their arms so that peace could come to the region. This was a widespread demand of the residents of the Swat Valley. They were allowed to immediately set up a justice system as long as they stopped the fighters from fighting. But somehow, the militants are stubborn.
المسلحون لجأوا إلى عقد اجتماع لهم لدرس الموقف في ظل اختفاء من كان يتوسط. The armed fighters held a meeting to study their position amidst the absence of the government mediator, Sufi Muhammad, the leader of the movement for implementing Islamic law, Sharia. He held the government responsible for halting the peace process by carrying out a military offensive against the armed fighters. In Islamabad, the new head of the Jamia Islamiyya pledged to launch an anti-American campaign, calling on Americans to leave Pakistan.
The government is bound down to America. We began a movement in all of Pakistan to raise people's awareness about the Americans' plans and extent of our leaders' weaknesses. Thus, we want to pressure them to change their positions.
Some observers may consider the government's call on the fighters to lay down their guns as coming too late after everyone agreed that the fighters were an essential party to the SWAT deal, especially considering their developing military impact. Experts believe that the Pakistani Army's offensive in the Swat Valley came after the U.S. threatened to carry out similar operations if the Pakistani Army did not carry them out itself. Ahmed Zaidan, Al Jazeera, Islamabad.
Al Jazeera, Islamabad.
الكويت تستعد لانتخابات برلمانية بعد أقل من شهر وسط.
Kuwait is gearing up for the parliamentary elections, which are set to take place in less than a month. The elections are expected to witness intense competition between the various political and tribal blocs in the country. Yesterday was the deadline for candidates to announce their intention to run in the elections. However, the candidates have until May 8th to withdraw from the race. There are currently nearly 288 candidates planning to run in the parliamentary elections. Among the candidates are 19 women who are working hard towards securing a seat in the National Assembly of Kuwait. Ahmed Al-Anazi reports from Kuwait.
The door to run in the 13th parliamentary elections in Kuwaiti has closed. The legislative elections are set to take place on May 16th. There are currently 288 candidates expected to run in the parliamentary elections. Among the candidates are 19 women who are hoping to secure a seat in the National Assembly of Kuwait. It seems that all political, sectarian, and tribal blocs are seeking to win the majority of votes in the parliament.
I met with Dr. Fatima and told her, Dr. Fatima, Kuwait and the women of Kuwait are calling upon us. I'm here to serve Kuwait and its people. I told her we need to join hands because only teamwork can get us there.
We have prioritized our agenda, which we will announce in the next few days. This race will determine the future of our tribe and our brothers in Kuwait.
Kuwait has recently witnessed protests over the arrests of 3 candidates and a former member of the parliament by the state security agencies. The arrests were made after the Kuwaiti securities authorities accused the candidates of issuing remarks, undermining the integrity of the Kuwaiti state and its supreme leadership.
The government should show respect and restraint because it's the one that is holding the power. It shouldn't use chaotic measures in dealing with the Kuwaiti people.
As the election campaigns kick off, the candidates are seeking to rally support, with each lobbying in their own district. It is expected that the candidates will use political speeches and vigorous campaigns aimed at attracting voters and rallying support. However, the Kuwaiti voter remains to be the one with the last word in these elections. The Kuwaiti people are gearing up for the elections amidst frustration and despair. This comes after many have realized that some of the parliament members were the main reason for the long feud witnessed in the country, a feud that has widened the political gap between the country's constitutional authority on one side and the executive branch on the other.
Israel's threats to carry out a military strike against Tehran's nuclear facilities have stirred reactions from Iran's leadership. Let's watch the following report.
The decision by the U.S. administration under President Barack Obama to change its tone regarding the Iranian nuclear program has prompted more than one Israeli official to doubt that Israel may carry out a military strike against Tehran. However, some Western media reports confirmed that Israel is planning to carry out a wide-scale attack on Iran's nuclear site. In response, Iran warned that its military capability is far superior to counter any military actions taken by Israel.
Today, our army is equipped with one-of-a-kind military capabilities. Our nation has become one of the most superior nations in the region. This is due to the blessing of God, the unity of our people, and the capability of our armed forces.
Meanwhile, Tehran described the latest U.S. threats of dismantling the Iranian nuclear program by military means as nothing more than psychological warfare against Tehran. On the other hand, Iran described the Israeli threats as rumors and media rhetoric.
The New York Times talked about a possible Israeli military strike against Iran, which leaders of the Zionist entity, including Peres, have dismissed. Frankly, we do not know the source of such rumors.
According to political sources in Iran, Israel will not be able to launch an attack on Iranian vital installations without the U.S.'s approval due to logistical reasons. Some of the nuclear sites that Israel may strike are the Arthakhan plant for the production of oxide uranium, the Badr Abbas plant for the production of uranium concentrate, known as yellow cake, the UCF Center for the Treatment of Uranium, the UBA facility for the production of atomic energy, and the Natanz plant for the enrichment of uranium, which is located in the province of Esfahan, in addition to the heavy Arak nuclear reactor, which operates on heavy water. Also, the Bushehr nuclear power station and nuclear research centers in Tehran and Karaj are among the sites that may be targeted by Israel.
The elements of surprise and elements of shock are two factors present in military science. Iran is relying on both factors. In addition, Iran possesses missiles air and countering capabilities.
Observers believe that an Israeli strike against Iran's nuclear sites will open a wide-scale front for political chaos in the region. In addition, Iran's response will not be limited to launching the long-range Shahab missiles, which could reach the heart of the Hebrew state. However, Iran may widen its retaliatory actions by targeting Israeli and American interests around the world. Iran has warned more than once that it will close its strategic Strait of Hormuz. Iran may also use oil as a weapon in its war. Iran believes that Tel Aviv, in light of its political and security shortcomings in the aftermath of its two separate wars against two of Iran's close allies in the region, namely Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Palestine, will not be able to engage in a conflict with countries like Iran, which has shown a great deal of military capability and arsenal. Ahmad Amin for the Madar program, Abu Dhabi Channel, Tehran.
Noam Shalit, the father of kidnapped Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit, left for the United States today, where he plans to meet with influential Jewish leaders and officials of the Obama administration in hopes of gaining more support for his son's release. Shalit will stress the need for a concrete sign from Hamas that Gilad is alive and well, and he will also voice his criticism of the Red Cross, which still has not visited his son after almost 3 years in captivity. Without a complete settlement freeze, there will be no negotiations between Israel and the Palestinian Authority. That message today from PA President Mahmoud Abbas, who also said that the borders of Israel are those it had before the Six-Day War, and not 1 centimeter more or less. Abbas rejected the idea of recognizing Israel as a Jewish state, saying that it's equivalent to renunciation of the Palestinian refugees' so-called right of return. European Union foreign ministers gathered in Luxembourg today. On the agenda, a review of the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. The EU diplomats said they are waiting for a policy statement from the new Netanyahu government concerning Israel's position regarding a two-state solution with the Palestinians.
We want to have good and trustworthy relations with Israel, but at the same time, we have Council conclusions that very clearly said in the 8th or 9th of December that indeed our will be seen in the context of Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
The Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad has taken contradictory positions in an anti-Israel speech. He said that there's nothing preventing the Palestinians from recognizing it under the framework of a regional settlement based on a two-state solution. In an interview on the U.S.-based ABC network, Ahmadinejad said that his government will support any decision made by the Palestinians. The Iranian president said that the issue is about the Palestinian people's right to decide their fate and have their decision respected by other countries. However, he did not clarify whether his country would recognize Israel if an agreement is made regarding the establishment of a Palestinian state. To analyze this, we have joining us from Cairo Dr. Mohammed Hamza, the Director of Sacred Studies. Welcome, Dr. Mohammed. How can we interpret these contradictory messages being given by Mr. Ahmadinejad?
This is not the first time that he makes a statement like this. Actually, he did this on September 24th of last year. He spoke to the New York Daily News saying that if the Palestinian leaders agreed to a two-state solution, Iran may be able to coexist with Israel. His vice president, Asfandiar Rahim Nashai, also made statements. 2 months ago, he said that the Iranian people are friends of the Israeli people. Ahmadinejad did not comment or deny the statement. What's new about his latest statement is the timing of it, especially after the wide-scale political controversy he created with his speech at the Durban II conference. Ahmadinejad accused the world of having a double standard, But he himself can be accused of having a double standard in his speeches. His statements regarding this issue have been contradictory. On one hand, he wants to erase the state of Israel, and on the other, he says that he accepts a two-state solution.
This will not be his last statement relating to the two-state solution. However, as you said, there are contradictory messages. What's the objective of these kinds of messages? He talks about removing the state of Israel, then later he says he's convinced about the two-state solution. What's the goal of these messages?
I think that this new talk, the resumption of such discussions, or the reconfirmation of Iran's acceptance of a two-state solution, comes under the framework of a historic compromise and the anticipation of an American-Iranian dialogue soon. In the end, he is sending a message to the U.S. about the possibility of a compromise, of what the limitations of a dialogue then can be had with the U.S. about Iran's influence in the Middle East. This is an important sign to Iran's allies, who are betting that this dialogue or historic compromise between the United States and Iran may eliminate them. It appears that this is the first sign that they may be the first victims of this historic compromise.
The fourth round of Palestinian reconciliation talks have started in the Egyptian capital of Cairo. Shireen Yassin has the details of that.
Israel completely sealed off the occupied West Bank on Monday ahead of its annual Independence Day celebrations. The Palestinian territories will be sealed until midnight on Wednesday. During that time, entry of Palestinians into Al-Quds and Israel will be severely limited to urgent humanitarian cases and journalists. The restrictions involve tighter security procedures at checkpoints that adds to the burden on Palestinians who have already expressed frustration and anger. Since the outbreak of the second Palestinian uprising in September 2000, Israel has usually sealed off the West Bank ahead of major holidays, saying the move is necessary to prevent attacks.
The collective punishment that the government of Israel has been using since 1948 until today on the Palestinian people by punishing everybody. And today we have been punished by being forced to use such checkpoints and to go through such an apartheid wall to Jerusalem.
Israel's Independence Day celebrations and the tight security measures imposed on Palestinians coincide with a new round of internal Palestinian dialogue in Cairo. Palestinian officials have often reiterated that the internal division will push the dream of establishing a Palestinian state even further. PA acting President Mahmoud Abbas has asked the two rival factions, Fatah and Hamas, to do their best to reach an agreement.
We are going to the polls in January, but before that, we have to reach an agreement. We have to get over any personal interest and start thinking about the Palestinians and the urgent need to establish a state.
Analysts say that the fourth round of talks between both parties are decisive. If both fail to form a coalition government, Mahmoud Abbas will ask the current caretaker government Prime Minister Salam Fayyad to form a government.
This is the most important round of talks. Both parties should do their best in order to form a coalition government. We cannot afford another failure of talks.
Officials have warned that today's dialogue in Cairo might be the last round of talks and that both sides should reach an agreement that is in the best interest of the Palestinians. As the borders are sealed for Israel's Independence Day, Palestinians are looking to the healing of the current rift between the political parties. This is the fourth round of talks to create some sort of unity and a common front in the negotiations with the current Israeli government. From the Kalandia checkpoint, Shireen Yassin, Press TV, Al-Quds.
Iraqi Kurds used to live in the northern city of Mosul during Saddam Hussein's regime, but many have left amid death threats and violence in the last 2 years and now live in internal refugee camps. And political change means they see little likelihood of returning home soon. Al Jazeera's Zaina Khoda visited a refugee camp in Akri, northern Iraq, and sent this report.
They fled from what's become one of the most dangerous cities in Iraq today, Mosul. Kurds who left because of death threats, now living in this refugee camp in northern Iraq. Bahjat brought his family here 2 years ago after militiamen accused him of working for the Americans. He only expected to be away from Mosul for a while, but now he fears he won't ever be returning home with the shift in the balance of power in Mosul.
I no longer believe we can return since the Hadba party won the provincial elections. They are the Ba'ath party and they want all the power.
Kurds used to be in charge of the administration in Mosul, a Sunni Arab-dominated region. They were defeated by the Hadba nationalist movement in January's provincial poll. It's all about who controls the oil-rich territories in northern Iraq, regional or central government. Kurds and Arabs suspicious of each other's intentions. Kurds have been fleeing Mosul for years. Some of them live in this camp. They all want to go back, but they're losing hope. They believe the Hadba party's plan is to force Kurds to leave Mosul. Hadba campaigned on a pro-Arab platform, vowing to get rid of Kurdish militiamen in Mosul. It had accused the previous Kurdish administration of seeking to extend the boundaries of the Kurdistan regional government, but Kurds have their own concerns.
The Hadba are members of the Ba'ath party, and we are sure of that. They are acting like Saddam and trying to get rid of the Kurds.
Hadba denies that charge, but people here are convinced more Kurds will leave Mosul.
Kurds tell us to find them homes here. The Hadba are very strong now.
Osman, who fled just before the elections in January after being threatened by armed men, shows us the few belongings he managed to take with him. He believes the government of Prime Minister Noor al-Maliki is conspiring against the Kurds.
Maliki wants to become like Saddam, and he, along with Al-Qaeda, Hadba and Ba'ath Party, wants to control the whole of Mosul.
Not all is well in northern Iraq. Arabs and Kurds have been trying to consolidate their control over disputed territories. And pending a political settlement, tensions may worsen in mixed areas such as Mosul. Zana Khudr, Al Jazeera, Acre, northern Iraq.
The number of pilgrims coming from different Muslim countries to visit the home of Imam Ali, peace be upon him, in the holy city of Najaf has increased due to its historic importance. Imam Ali lived in this home when he moved to Kufa and made it the capital of the Islamic Caliphate. We leave you with Talal Hassan.
The
center of Al-Kufa city has many religious shrines, which were built during the early era of Islam. These shrines include a small home that has a green dome near the Great Mosque. It is adjacent to what was left of the Amara Mosque. This modest place was the home of Imam Ali, peace be upon him. He moved there in the 36th year of the Islamic Hijri calendar, when he made Al-Kufa the capital of the Islamic Caliphate.
This is not the home of Imam Ali. The land was leased from the son of the Imam's brother. His name was Judah bin al-Makhzumi. He lived in Al-Kufa. Imam Ali rented his home and land for 4 years and 8 months. People in Al-Kufa told him, "You are the leader of the believers. Why are you living in this modest home, which was made of palm leaves, mud, and stone?" Imam Ali, peace be upon him, said, "I want to be like the rest of the poor people who live here."
He wanted to be close to the Great Mosque, and he wanted to live like the rest of the people.
The internal features of the home were intact until it was renovated in 2002. However, the internal structure was changed during the second renovation, which was carried out by the engineers from the Shiite Waqf institution. This compelled researchers to ask for the home to be rebuilt as it once had been.
The internal structures were not supposed to be changed, because any change or addition could raise suspicions, and we do not need such attention. The more a historical site is left the way it was originally built, the more telling it's about the area in which it was built.
The site consists of a small hallway that leads to 4 rooms and a well which people use to drink water from for blessings. But recently it was closed. Centuries after this home was built, some of its historic characteristics have been lost. However, one can still feel the spirit of Imam Ali in this place, which reminds us of his modesty, peace be upon him. Alsumaria, Tal Hassan, the holy city of Najaf. The Coalition Against Islamophobia counted in its annual census in Paris about 80 cases of attacks against Muslims in France since last year. The French media has played a role in the surge in hatred and violence against Muslims under the pretext of globalization and freedom of expression.
Islamophobia, or the fear of Islam, is a term that was added to the vocabulary for discrimination and antagonism against Islam, which has sparked controversy in the West. This term first appeared at the end of the 1980s, and its usage increased after the events of September 2001.
This phenomena began to increase after the events of September 11, when the cursed George Bush used this term to describe all Muslims as terrorists. We plan to remove this term from all French channels.
The frequent attacks that Muslims and Arabs are subjected to affect many aspects of their lives. The number of incidents of attacks has reached 80, which the Coalition Against Islamophobia in France surveyed during its annual census for the year 2008.
The majority of the attacks happened in the public sector. People are generally uncomfortable with veiled women, and they are repulsed by it. The same thing goes for bearded Muslim men.
The latest victim of Islamophobia was a veiled woman who was attacked by Nazis.
My sister was assaulted 2 weeks ago when she was downtown. 3 men who belonged to a Nazi group forced her into a car. They all started beating her and calling her names, and they injured her right arm.
The frequent attacks on cemeteries and the desecration of holy sites and the burning of 40 mosques is strong evidence of the increase in antagonism against Islam.
Islamophobia is a phenomenon which is not being recognized and not being fought against by the state. Huge funds are allocated to organizations who fight racism, and they receive a lot of financial support from the state and also receive support politically and from the media.
Linking Islam to terrorism, as well as the law that was passed in 2004 that bans wearing the headscarf in schools, were all used by the French media to incite fear-mongering against Muslims under the pretext of globalization and freedom of expression. Hatred, violence, and discrimination were among the most mentioned terms in the annual census on Islamophobia, which Muslims are subjected to on a daily basis in France. Jamal, Al-Alam, Paris.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/Mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs which connect you to the world.